Remember to press F to pay your respects. As that was the trailer, or at least the end of the trailer for Apocalypse 22nd of February 2018. It is coming, and we are very excited. And by we, of course, I mean the royal we in this particular context. Regardless, we're going to move on to Death Diary 102. It's been 102 already. It's crazy. Well, then again, the game came out, what, like 2 years ago now? It's time just goes by so fast. Regardless, we're going to talk about a mixture of Cherry features that will be available for free with the Cherry update, as well as some Apocalypse features, which are obviously part of the Apocalypse expansion, as I mentioned, available on the 22nd of February. Anyway, let's dive right in. Today we're going to be talking about Edicts, Campaigns, and Unity Ambitions. So let's talk about Edicts first, which is going to be a Cherry feature and part of 2.0. So right now, Edicts, the way they work is they generally have their settings on the planet. You tag them and they work, and basically they're planetary edicts, and they're okay for what they are, but it looks like a lot of these are going to move up to a different level, and they're going to be reworked ever so slightly. So most of the edicts have been moved out of the planetary edict category, and only a handful are staying there, and the rest are all moving to Empire edicts. Now, complete. What still stays there is like things like land clearance, consecrated worlds. Both of them are part of the Ascension system, so consecrated worlds are only available to spiritualists, and land clearance is going to be reworked to add additional tiles to your planet. And those are obviously part of Mastery of Nature, but those are only planetary edicts. We're going to have Empire edicts instead. So how is this going to work? Well, originally, edicts generally work by you spend 100 influence and you get your edicts. Now this is now going to move to a Empire level. So for instance, production targets where your mineral production increases is now going to be a Empire-wide edict. Obviously the cost is going to go up. In the example I have in front of me, it's 255. I don't know whether or not this edict is going to scale based on a Empire size, which is a rather interesting question to ask. But basically, if you have an Empire more than 3 planets, it's going to be cheaper to use your influence to get these Empire edicts in than the old planetary edicts, which is interesting to say the least. Farming subsidies, capacity overload, information quarantine, all of those are now on a Empire level. So that is definitely something you want to keep your eye on. So yeah, that's part of Cherry. Then we're going to move on to Campaigns. So there's a new type of edict which is available as soon as you unlock planetary unification technology, and they are situational items that you can buy into using energy credits. So things like education campaigns, when in this particular case, leader experience gain increases by 25 years for 10 years. So they're kind of like species traits or temporary civics that you can punch in for like 10 years. And there's something called recycling campaign, which I'm gonna guess is gonna reduce the cost of consumer goods. Healthcare campaigns increase the lifespan of your species, and that sort of thing, and all going to cost energy. Whether or not this is going to scale on a Empire size is kind of up for debate. We'll also see how that is going to go. And I basically, yeah, they are typically very situationally additional use for stored energy. Yeah, so basically, if you don't have enough energy, which, you know, honestly, in the early game is kind of unlikely, because energy is kind of what makes the world go round, and whilst minerals you will generally have enough of, energy is not something that you have kicking around all that much of. So, kind of curious on why it is done like this. Then we have Unity Ambitions, which is, like I mentioned before, a Apocalypse feature, which means it's part of the expansion. And they are listed as extremely powerful edicts that last 10 years and will cost Unity to activate. Now, in the past, people have complained saying, look, I got all my traditions done that I wanted. I don't need domination because I don't have any vassals. I don't need Federation stuff. I just want to spend Unity on something that I find useful rather than filling up the tree. Which in itself is totally understandable, but then of course you won't be able to access any additional Ascension perks, so that's something you want to keep in the back of your head in that particular case. However, you can now spend your Unity based on things called ambitions. Once again, they last for a limited amount of time. They are not permanent traditions per se. Things like we have got the ambition scientific revolution. So it lasts 10 years, it increases research speed by 20% and adds additional research alternatives. We got desperate measures, fortress proclamation, I think what it says, as well as agricultural architectural revolution, which I'm gonna guess is going to increase the speed that you can build buildings. Now I asked Wiz on how this is actually going to work and what the mechanics are behind this. The way this is going to scale it's just going to cost whatever the next tier of Unity cost your tradition is going to be. So let's say you have a tradition and it scales up. Let's say you have a tradition that costs 100 and the next one costs 200. You could use that to spend on a ambition and get a scientific revolution very early on. It's not particularly clear. Oh, okay. So well, hold on. I misread that here. You will get access to Unity ambitions as soon as you research Ascension Theory Society technology. And has a dynamic cost, which is calculated in the same way. It's cost for unlocking a new tradition. So that's population size, planetary size, that sort of thing, where you are in the tree, etc. So spamming those Unity buildings is definitely going to be interesting. Though activating the ambition will not raise the cost of future ambitions traditions, which is nice. So you always stick with the same number as long as you don't unlock any more further traditions. And like I said, this is a apocalypse feature. What do I think about this? Well, it's not permanent, so it's not a tradition per se. It kind of means that you won't be able to unlock an Ascension perk, although by the time you get to this point, you pretty much have at least 5 or 6 Ascension perks unlocked as soon as you have Ascension Theory, that is. So I could see that it would be useful to have these. Then again, for the early game, some of these would be really useful as well, but, you know, arguments can be made. But do you really want to give up an Ascension perk to have Unity ambitions? Now, I understand that if you finish up the tree, you can go nuts and do these Unity ambitions. It's just, you know, it's a question on, is this practical or not? So it's basically a pool to spend Unity on once you're done with the tradition tree. But yeah. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. Next week, we're going to be talking about civics and Ascension perks, funnily enough. So that should be interesting. New civics, new Ascension perks. Ascension perks, as we mentioned before, are going to move into the base game from Utopia. And civics, I always like to see more civics. So we've got, for instance, the one where you start on a Tomb world, or you start on a Gaia world, etc., etc., etc. So there's quite a lot of options there. Yeah, like I said, so quickly recapping here. So we have edict changes, which is a cherry feature, going to move to a empire level, except for a couple of planetary ones. We have campaigns, which is energy for bonuses, which is a 2.0 feature, and Unity ambitions, which is a apocalypse feature, which basically allows you to get crazy amounts of bonuses by using Unity once your tradition tree is done and you got Ascension Theory. Oh, this wraps up today's Dev Diary video, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.